Welcome to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam-Erik. This is a podcast where I meet hospitality change makers, thought leaders, and people who like to make a difference to make the world a better place. Well, my guest today is Daniel Hettwer. He has a very interesting background. He has transitioned from pioneering sustainability finance in China to shaping the landscape of entertainment with the Hidden Worlds Entertainment. With the background of this financial engineering and consulting for international companies, his journey evolved when he collaborated with Hollywood's leading previsualization company, The Third Floor. So driven by a vision to use entertainment as a catalyst for positive change, Daniel founded this company called Hidden Worlds Entertainment. And their groundbreaking venture transforms entertainment, travel, and hospitality by crafting immersive guest experiences that seamlessly blend enjoyment with impact. Interesting in this only immersive entertainment project accredited as a United Nations Ocean Decade activity seeks to stimulate ocean science and knowledge generation to reverse the decline of the state of the ocean system and catalyze new opportunities for sustainable development of this massive marine ecosystem. So Daniel, welcome to the show, and I'm very glad to meet you.
Hey, Sam, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan, so it's an honor to be here today.
Well, I'm really becoming a fan of you here by reading about what you're doing. So it'll be it's a mutual. But I'm interested to know about the inspiration you have had and what are your first memories that triggered the idea that you want to create something larger than life and larger than what you are, and to make what we call the world a better place?
That's a great question. It depends on how far back you want to go. Personally, I've always been incredibly interested in anything water related. There's this draw that water creates, and I think a lot of us feel the same way. And I started getting closer to the water, and I started becoming very interested in what's in the water. So particularly fish and sea life and so forth. So I was diving at a very young age. I've been really enjoying to dive, but to be completely candid, I've also been always enjoying to fish. So, there was always this appreciation for nature, but at the same time, that adventure with nature, and catching fish and all of that. So I became very interested in nature conservation because I wanted to preserve what's there. And of course, if you like fishing, you want to continue to fish as well. That was sort of like my very early steps into the nature conservation space. And I learned quite quickly that a lot of people that like to fish or people that like to hunt are actually quite interested in nature conservation, which was very interesting because a lot of people on the nature conservation side don't think the same of those people, right? And that quite early on got me very interested in, habit formation and change, and how can we generate impact? How can we reach the other side? How can we, work together to make the world a better place, without offending each other, judging each other, and creating division in the world. And that was the very, very early beginning of my interest in this field.
Very good. Now, obviously, you need people to partner with you who have a similar mindset. How challenging was it to find people who you could work with, or was it just natural because you were in the what I call in the right circles about those things?
Right. So, initially I was trying to find a job within the nature conservation field, applying my psychology background. So I ended up studying psychology, and that was quite hard. That was very hard because a lot of the charities and NGOs, they have a different business model, right? They like to issue papers and peer review studies and so forth because that ends up raising them more money and that pays the salary. So a ground bottom-up type approach to create consumer change, so to speak, was not quite interesting. So I moved into sustainability finance, so still within the impact space, but from more financial point of view. And then with some of the savings I had, I ended up investing into an entertainment company, and that got me into the entertainment field. Was it challenging to get people behind this vision? Look, I think it's it was challenging, but it was also very interesting, because if you're serious about impact, you don't just want to talk to people in the conservation space, right? So we need somebody like Philippe Cousteau or Dr. Austin Gellinger, who are both partners of ours and who are very, very big in the conservation space. And we love them and we appreciate them. We love working with them. But at the same time, you need neuroscientists, you need psychologists, you need people that understand how to create change, how to tell stories, how to stimulate your brain for awareness and for engagement. So we work with Dr. Paul Zak and Dr. Jorge Barraza from USC. And then, of course, you need people that understand entertainment. So you need to work with people like Bob Ward, who's one of the founding members of Universal Theme Parks. So I think it was certainly challenging, but it wasn't quite as challenging because everybody saw the uniqueness, the innovation, the different approach. So everybody gave it a shot. And I think by giving it a shot, we had an opportunity and we proved what we came out to prove.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that you're connected with those personalities that you mentioned, I think that makes a world of a difference. And I think that that gives you the push and motivation to keep pushing, because there are so many in this world who say, that's not really worth it, doesn't work, and obviously you are not the person who will listen to that kind of. I think it probably motivates you more than anything else to push harder to make things better. But for those who don't know about the Hidden World Entertainment and what are the things what are the activities, it would be interesting to learn a little bit about the actual experience visitors can have or the kind of activities you do. So if you can just share with me the kind of services and what you provide.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are an impactainment company. So we are out there in order to generate positive impact through entertainment. Now, what does that mean? Of course, we need to have the entertainment angle. We need to be fun and, entertaining, drawing people in, because nobody listens if they don't have fun, right? That's a very basic principle. So it needs to be fun. It needs to be sexy. It needs to be having a draw. But then we're looking to create impact through entertainment. That means we're looking to tell stories that are emotionally engaging, that are stimulating your brain in a certain way, that are optimized for oxytocin release, that are highly engaging. And in doing so, impactainment is different than edutainment, because edutainment is focused on education. But facts don't really create change, feelings do, right? Most people make decisions based on emotions, they make decisions based on feelings, and then they try to rationalize them with facts afterwards. It's quite interesting. Yeah. Because we make a decision and then we don't want to look stupid. So education always follows action, right? It's quite interesting how that works. So you do get the education aspect anyways if you create an impact aspect. So that's in a nutshell the overall focus of the company. And two of the prime areas that we focus on are nature conservation and mental health or mental well-being. We started off with the nature conservation side, where we have a beautiful, immersive, nature-inspired dining experience that take you through the ocean, through the mangroves, through coral reefs. We're now expanding that. We're deploying that on a permanent basis where we have additional themed tree elements, soundscapes that give you the feeling of sitting in a mangrove forest. Everything is planet positive or ocean positive from a dining aspect point of view. So with every bite, you actually help the planet. You actually help the ocean. It's the only dining experience out there that utilizes invasive species and overpopulated species that you can actually create positive change by eating some of our dishes. The same goes for the drinks. Our drinks are ocean positive. So if you end up having a slight hangover the next day, congratulations, you helped the ocean with it.
Where does this? Where are you located in terms of venues, or how do you operate?
Yeah, so we've started out to prove the concept. So it's a very, very novel concept. This hasn't been done before. So our first step was to really prove that this works and that people love it and that we can create impact, right? So we had thousands of people going through the show, and a lot of our guests afterwards went to do beach cleanups. So the same people that paid a lot of money to go to our experience were then standing the next day in the hot Miami sun, collecting cans and plastic bags and whatnot. So certainly we've been proven that it works. So we've been doing this as a pop-up format first, and we've been blessed and working with great brands such as the Islands of the Bahamas, as well as MasterCard, and making these pop-ups happening. But because the guest experience was so great, and quite frankly, we were sold out every day, we're now able to engage with investors, and we're bringing this on a permanent basis to select markets, Miami being one of them, Nassau being another one of them. So there's a lot happening this year from a permanent deployment point of view. And from there, we're just going to look and expand on it, ideally with interested partners from the hotel space, for example, high-end brands that are looking to do better and do good. And we see that a lot in the market. I'm sure, Sam-Erik, you can agree on that. You see a lot more sustainability focus, right? A lot more impact focus, a lot more consciousness in your space. So I think there's a lot of synergy there.
Yeah. I mean, once I knew we were going to have a discussion about this topic and what you do, I started to think about what I have seen and what I have seen people doing. And of course, there are experiments by certain Michelin star restaurants or individual banquet events where they are creating these events. But I never saw that they were seriously about conservation, sustainability, or regenerative ideas, any of that. It was just purely a entertainment factor that came in. But then I'm close to what's happening in Asia, and then in South Korea there are several activities going on. The latest one is a Inspire resort in close to the Incheon airport, and so they are developing. So particularly for the Korean, they have taken this idea, but I haven't heard the magic words that you're talking about, which is energy conservation and all that. It has been more of the entertainment factor. So I think you clearly have something going for yourself, and you probably know a little bit about me, about my passion for creating sustainable human experiences in the kind of activities I do. So there is definitely a synergy, and I know that the consumers will definitely vote with their wallet when they are going to a place, and then if they can make a difference through whatever they can do, I think they will spend money on those activities. So I think you definitely have a very interesting position here. But I'm interested to learn what you have heard about some specific success stories of examples of who were deeply moved about those experiences at your pop-up events.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting. So there were a couple of anecdotes we have. Of course, number one, we've seen the great success of our cleanups afterwards, right? So that's a very measurable element, and we've seen that we were sold out, which again is a very measurable element, and we've been attracting all kinds of famous people that tend to come through word of mouth, right? So we've had NBA players in there and NFL players and so forth, and they simply wouldn't come if they didn't hear that's a great experience from somebody else. So we've definitely seen those very measurable aspects, but then we've also had these unmeasurable aspects. Right? We had people ending up crying in the space, not because of pain, but because of just being so emotionally engaged, because it does take you on a roller coaster. A good story takes you on a roller coaster, right?
Oh, yes.
No good stories ever flatline or rise up and nothing happens. There always have to be challenges. There have to be moments that are slightly, put things in a different perspective and so forth. So we've definitely seen that within the space where people were incredibly emotional, and people paid good money for it and came afterwards to us and thanked us for the best night ever. And that was beautiful to see. But it does make sense, right? If you look into the space, if you look into successful brands, every great brand sells you an emotion, not a tangible good, right? Nike is not a shoe brand. They're not selling you shoes. They're selling you the feeling of you can do it better, right? You can do whatever you want. You just need to believe in yourself and just do it. Yeah. Apple is selling you the belief that you can be a creative disruptor if you're part of Apple, you're part of a tribe that goes against the mainstream, you know, although arguably now Apple is mainstream itself. But back then it was the bad IBMs. There was those enemies, right, that were created. So that's a very, very emotional attachment. As a matter of fact, in the latest, or one of the latest Harvard Business Reviews, they had a very interesting study that proved that emotional connection is one of the main drivers of brand equity and will be even more so going forward. So if you do have a great story to tell, and if you're genuine about it, then you must tell that story, because it's not going to be only very impactful, but it's also going to be commercially successful.
Yeah, I mean, these events and the sort of the great story will create a ripple effect of inspiration and motivation, right, and positive movement for people. So that's very interesting. But I'm also quite curious that you have got United Nations behind you. I mean, this particular aspect of it, and collaboration with the islands like the Bahamas. How does this partnership contribute to the overall impact and reach of Hidden Worlds Entertainment mission that you have?
Well, first of all, we're incredibly grateful for these partners, right?
Yeah.
And I think it proves that the team has created something that's truly very unique, right? Because otherwise these partners wouldn't come behind it. United Nations and the government of the Bahamas, those are big names. They wouldn't risk their reputation if it wasn't for something that truly is innovative and creates impact. It certainly has helped us. Look, I mean, there's always value in having a partner like the United Nations, because that in turn shows that we are serious about what we're doing. It shows that we have taken a measurable, evidence-based approach to our impact, because there's a lot of people, frankly, out there that do still do quite a bit of greenwashing. Sure. By the way, we see the same now in the mental health space, where it's all well washing, you know. The washing aspect seems to be a recurrent theme, no matter in which impact area you're at. So there's just so much, you know, I wouldn't call it fraud, but there's certainly misleading the consumer in many areas. So a consumer likes brands that a consumer likes a brand that he or she can trust. So that element of trust we've definitely benefited from it. And then for the Bahamas, Bahamas have been incredible to work with. We really enjoyed our partnership there. It actually came and developed because they came to our very first activation, loved it so much that they wanted to do another activation with us as the prime sponsor, where then the deputy prime minister came and fell so in love that he decided that he needs this experience on a permanent basis in Nassau. So it's been a very evolving partnership. We certainly benefited from it because it's transitioning us into a more permanent, more cash flow stable type situation here. But then other than that, I mean, you know how it is, right? The multi-sensory aspect of a dining experience is incredibly important. So if you have an association with the Bahamas and you can show those beautiful visuals and these aerial footage, these shots over the islands and so forth, your dish is going to taste better already, right? So there's definitely that psycho taste aspect that we've benefited from as well.
Yeah. How do you reach out to those? I mean, you mentioned Bahamas, but there are so many destination in Caribbean or even to other areas of the world. How do you reach out to them, or do they just reach out to you because they have seen what you're doing?
So far, they've reached out to us, believe it or not. So we've been quite lucky and blessed in that. Now, as we're moving into this new permanent location strategy, we are going to have rotating menus, and we want to support local initiatives from different countries, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to work with different tourism organizations. It might be Costa Rica, it might be Malaysia, it might be Indonesia for one season. So we're definitely looking to partner and increase our partnership focus here in order to keep the experience fresh, but also to highlight different cuisines, different cultures, different ways of approaching sustainability and different charities and impact areas. So yeah, we've been very blessed in being actively approached, but we do need to do more now actively from our side as well to reach out to more of these tourism organizations.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there are very large trade show events going on around the world. Berlin, the International Tourismusbörse is coming up. That's the that's one of those huge events where everybody goes. Of course, in the US, there are very large trade shows. I don't know if that's kind of an angle you would like to take, but are you considering that, or is it more of that you're going just one-on-one and targeted to, let's say, if it's Malaysia or Thailand or Indonesia, and then reach out to the tourism authorities and then taking that route?
No, look, we're very open. Look, we just want to create great experiences that create positive change, right? So whatever gets us that direction. If somebody sees us and wants to reach out, we're more than happy to entertain any of that. But I love your idea, what you just mentioned with the tourism conferences and exhibitions and so forth. I think there's a great opportunity, and we always want to support new ideas and share our knowledge. So if there's ever, a place where we can support, where we can add value by giving a keynote speech or something on the next generation of hospitality, we're of course very keen to do that too. I like that idea. I might come after the podcast and we can discuss that some more.
This episode is also available as an audio podcast. You'll find in the description the link to my podcast channel, or alternatively, just go to Apple Play and look for the Social Hotelier Show, and you'll find this episode also there. Okay, and now back to the episode. Very good. I'm very passionate about supporting local communities, and I think the local community plays a huge role in the success of those initiatives when you go to a island destination, because you're relying on the community also to do the right thing. So could you just share what your thoughts are about the engagement of local community to ensure the positive effect, and the kind of initiatives you think that you could be part of in maybe that goes beyond the immediate visitor experience?
Right. It's such a great question, and it's a question that has so many possible answers to it, right? So first of all, local communities, local support is always better than supporting huge organizations, right? You know where your money is going. There's a lot less overhead, so there's always a benefit in going to smaller type organization and charities that you're supporting. So that's first off, right? Secondly, it is quite interesting because from a psychology point of view, if I do something in Miami, my likelihood in getting people engaged is higher if I highlight initiatives that are also engaged in Miami, right? So lionfish, preventing lionfish from the oceans there, for example, that benefits both the Bahamas as well as Miami, is very strong because you're much more likely to engage with a local cause that is in tight proximity to where you live than with a cause that is completely disconnected. And that's the challenge, right? So now all of a sudden we do a pop-up experience in Miami, and hypothetically we work with Peru. Well, what are we going to do, right? How are we going to split it? And there might be interesting ways there where you do a dual partnership with two local charities, and that might be, for example, kids focus, right? So then all of a sudden you can leverage, the hook of kids and the connectedness between the kids both in Peru and Miami to nature. Just hypothetical example here, in order to get people engaged and get people to broaden their mind as well. So psychology is an incredibly interesting field because we act very, very irrational. Tribalism is a very strong force in our decision making. So that is just something that we always need to consider. How can we support best a local initiative in one of the tourism partnership locations that we have, while at the same time ensuring the maximum support for that, given the localism and tribalism aspects of the location where we're doing an activation in, which is most likely not in that country that we're looking to support, right? So that's a challenge. But the most important part is that, first of all, you need to be aware of the challenge. You need to understand the science and why that challenge is a challenge. And with that, you can overcome it by, again, applying science. Science is your best friend here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very interesting. You talk about the industry verticals can provide opportunities for impact and impactainment. Are there specific sectors within the entertainment, travel, and hospitality industries where you see untapped potential for combining fun with impact? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I think you have a great opportunity in a variety of sectors, right? And if you just look into the founder of the polio vaccine. I think Jonas Salk. He's the founder of the Salk Institute too. So the reason why one of the great inspirations for the polio vaccine was that he was awestruck. He went into this space, I believe it was a basilica or a church-like structure, and he was just blown away by the vastness and the greatness and the high ceilings and everything. And that gave him that final piece of inspiration to really push forward with the polio vaccine research. And because of that, he founded this institute that really focuses on the aesthetics of buildings as a way to inspire. So you could argue that architecture in itself has, given us the polio vaccine. So great. There are a lot of different fields where we can create impact. The fields that we are most interested in, though, are what I call the Trojan horses. And here it's very important to consider that impact is driven by positive change, right? So if you would be vegan and you want to get more people to eat less meat, then it makes no sense to build an experience for vegans, right? Unfortunately, in the conservation space, we built experiences for ocean conservationists to support the ocean. Well, they already support the ocean, so they don't really matter, right? In the plant-based movement, we built experiences for people that eat vegetarian or vegan already. That doesn't quite matter because they are already believing in this. So from an impactainment point of view, it's very important to target the people that you need to raise awareness, the sector where you need to raise awareness. And so seafood sector for us, for example, there's a lot of unsustainable seafood. So that's why we built an immersive seafood experience, but targeted at seafood consumers, the people that love their sushi, that love to go out, they love to have a sexy, fun night with sake and sashimi and all of it. And we've managed to create positive impact there. So to me personally, I think dining is one of the biggest sectors where you can create positive impact. The other sector is themed entertainment, so theme parks and so forth, because you can create inspiration at scale. There's 500 million people going through theme parks every year. I think 1.25 million of those are considered geniuses from a distribution point of view, from an IQ point of view. If you could inspire those 1.25 million people, we might actually have a shot to develop fusion or decarbonization and new techniques and desalination and so forth. So dining and themed entertainment, and then anything that really reaches a broad range of people. It's the same with cruise ships and hotels. There's a lot of unsustainable cruise ship operations, a lot of unsustainable hotel operations, where if you could reach those people with a more sustainability or impact focused offering, you would be able to create positive impact. And that's what we're here for.
What are your thoughts are? There's a kind of a attitude of certain people who want to make an impact by creating shame, that people will be shameful of their behavior. Is that a good way of doing these things, or is it just to create the positive things and lift them up rather than pressing them down?
Yeah, so shaming is probably the worst thing that you can do. So if you look into what happens in your brain if you get shamed or if you get offended, right? Being physically assaulted and assaulted through words has a very similar impact in your brain. So essentially your amygdala goes into a fight or flight response, and you're unable to receive information and make rational decisions, right? So what happens if I, extend my hand and I threaten to slap you in the face, or if I call you an idiot? It's exactly the same thing what happens in your brain. All right. So ask yourself, how many times if somebody threatens to slap you in the face, are you going to have a rational discussion with that person? How many times?
Not often.
Not often, right? So how many times are you going to listen to that person? And too many times in the conservation space, we stand on these big podiums and dressed up, and we look down on everybody and we tell everybody how much they suck. And then we expect them to turn around and do exactly as they were told, like little kids, right? That's not how you create change. Now, there's another misconception, unfortunately, which is driving attitudes. So there have been a lot of studies there was a big campaign here in the US. It was basically promoting five servings of fruit and vegetable each day. And then they measured the attitudes afterwards, right? And everybody said, yeah, you got to eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day. Did they? There was no measurable increase in consumption of fruit and vegetables each day. So attitudes don't drive behavior. Behavior drives attitudes, right? And how do you create behavior? Well, behavior is driven by emotions. So how do you create emotions? That is something that you can hack, right? And we have advanced techniques and technologies that can really measure whether or not somebody's emotionally engaged. And that goes back to the Greek and the storytelling aspects there. So the key to it really is engaging somebody in a fun way so they actually listen and they're open-minded, then telling an emotional story that is relevant to that person, ideally has a local angle to it so that it matters to you. That emotion then is translated into an action, and that action then ultimately leads to long-term behavior change if that action can be sustained through ongoing engagement, community building, and so forth. But to answer your question, yeah, please don't try to shame people. That's probably the worst thing you can do. And we see what's happening now, right? Where I live in the US, Republicans and Democrats don't talk to each other.
No.
The only thing that shaming does is to create more divide, and then we're not going to be able to move forward at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a lot of work to be done in that department for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I was just thought about it. I mean, you just gave a master class about storytelling, which I like. You just made in your comments. So it was nice that I think the audience should take note of what you just said a few minutes ago before we talked about living in US. So it's a very nice addition here. But technology. In terms of technology, how do you see it leveraging innovation to explore new possibilities and create an impactful experience across these various industry verticals? Any thoughts on that, the technology aspect?
Yeah, so technology is a great tool, right? We know that if we put you into an immersive experience, for example, any psychological impact that we create is amplified, right? So if I tell you an emotional story in a regular format, then I put you into that space afterwards, right? Let's say that it is talking about a kid in Indonesia. If you're sitting with that kid in the hut in Indonesia, it's going to be a much more impactful story.
Yeah.
So no doubt there. Having said that, no technology can overcompensate for a poor story.
Yeah.
Right. So you can have an incredible short story on a piece of paper that brings you to tears, and you can have a 2-hour Michael Bay Transformer movie that's just absolute, non-emotionally engaging, right? And so that's from a technology aspect, but we can also leverage technology to ensure that we tell emotional stories, right? And that's where it becomes very interesting now when we look into VR-based previsualization. So, for example, when we build our experiences, what we always do is we pre-build them in virtual reality, put people into VR, and then we use advanced neuroscience tools in order to measure people's neurochemistry, for example. So are we actually triggering empathy? Are we actually telling the story in a way where we are emotionally engaging? And we can do that now. We can measure that now. That is really, when Steven Spielberg used to write these amazing stories, he had to do that without any technological help. We can hack that process now. So that's very, very helpful. But that's also great because now you don't have an excuse to build a bad story anymore because we have the tools available to do it right. So anybody that does a bad story should probably reconsider the job that they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned mental health, and I think that's quite the interesting angle on things. What initiatives do you see that can be undertaken through your address to promote mental health, well-being, and through these immersive experiences? Is there a connection with those immersive experiences and related to mental wellness or well-being and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at one of the most successful immersive experiences out there on the planet. So it's these Van Gogh based immersive experiences, right? there millions of people have gone to these shows, and the guy unfortunately committed suicide. So we're out here appreciating the art of one of the greatest artists of all time, who ended up committing suicide. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any of them that actually talk about mental health, right? So it's a bit of a shame, because we're out here enjoying this beautiful art, and at the same time, there's no awareness for it, and we need this awareness, right? I believe in 2021, 23.8% of US Americans were suffering from mental health disorders.
Yeah.
If you talk to people in the space, that will tell you that 85% of all people at some point in their life will have a mental health challenge. So it impacts us all. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death for the bracket 14 to 29-year-old, and it's only going to rise because of social media. So we have a huge challenge here ahead of us. And I personally always found it a bit sad that we take this beautiful art, and many of these artists have struggled with mental health disorders. Frida Kahlo, Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, as well as authors, Fitzgerald, Mary Shelley, the one who wrote Frankenstein. Beethoven was bipolar. It goes on and on and on and on, right? So we enjoy this art, we enjoy these icons, and we don't even know that they were struggling. And that's a shame, because people need to be aware that there can be beauty in struggle. People need to be aware that you can overcome struggle and create greatness. There's amazing artists that had substance abuse issues and actually used art to overcome that, right? So these are important stories, and that extends until today, right? We see that with people that look beautiful and amazing and rich on Instagram, and in the end they overdose on a substance, right? Because they were depressed.
Yeah, that's very sad, and for particularly the young generation who is looking up to them and don't see the dark side of things. So and just to have that the idol, and they want to look up to them, and they're willing to spend all kinds of money to just have the right gear or whatever it is that they can identify with. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah, so I see really a massive opportunity here in the awareness space. You know, awareness for others and awareness for yourself. So if you're struggling from mental health disorders, you need to be aware that there are others out there. Loneliness is one of the main drivers of suicide, for example. So please be aware that you are not alone. There's others out there, and please be aware that there's help out there too. Now, if you're not struggling with mental health, there is an awareness for you to realize that others might be, and you should realize the signs and the symptoms. And these massive immersive experiences have such a powerful draw. Millions of people go through them. So you can save many, many lives by creating something that is, again, inviting and entertaining and engaging and interactive and has learning aspects to it. But at the same time, you come out of it and you are more aware. Now, where I would draw the line, we see a lot more of these, what I would call well-washing experiences, that are either not scientifically proven, never had an evidence-based approach. And then there's another category of people that mean very well, but where I'm a little worried when they position their experience as the one that is needed for people to feel better. And I hope everybody on this podcast here realizes that you don't need to spend $35, $40, $50 to go and experience to feel better. You need to pick up the phone and talk to a friend. You need to give a loved one a hug. You need to take a walk in nature. You need to take a piece of paper and just, we know from brain research, from brain science, that just writing down gratitude every day has a very powerful impact. Just doodling or drawing for 30 minutes after you had a stressful episode, it decreases your level of stress significantly. And it is proven. Heart rate studies and stress studies and brain studies, people were put into fMRIs to study this thing. So this isn't just some kumbaya nonsense here. This is hardcore science. Yeah. So don't ever feel like you need to spend all of this money or you're not rich enough to take care of yourself. There's many, many things that you can do. And I think our job here at Hidden Worlds is to create an experience that draws people in and creates that awareness. I don't want you to come twice. I want you to go home afterwards. I want you to be better. I don't need you to be a repeat customer. I need you to be better for yourself.
Does music play any role in the kind of activities you do in those experiences that you're providing?
Yeah, so music plays a huge role, actually. So it's quite interesting that you asked that because, and there's different elements of music. So there's amazing experiences out there that utilize vibroacoustics. So vibrations, for example, can put you almost into a meditative state. So that's very, very powerful. We know that songs that are listened to at 60 beats per minute, your brain waves almost melt with the song. You know, they almost become one. It fully syncs up, and it's absolutely wonderful. We know from sound therapy that there are certain sounds, certain vibrations that can alter your mood. There's those that make you a bit more calm, a bit more sleepy. There are those that get you a bit more hyped and ready to go, so to speak, right? So sound plays an incredible role. And then, of course, nature sound, the sound of waves, for example, has a very, very soothing effect. That's why ocean therapy is so good for you, right? When you sit on the beach and you just stare at an ocean, the soothing blue of the ocean together with those waves crashing has been proven to actually have a very positive impact on your brain. So definitely sound is incredibly important and incredibly overlooked in most experiences, unfortunately. Sure. But you know how it is, right? I mean, the hotels that you worked at or worked on, right? Imagine that you go to this place. It's wonderful. It's, beautiful accent lightings on the ground, it shines through these palm trees. It casts a shadow of these palms onto the ceiling, gold accents, a beautiful polished place. And all of a sudden it plays some rock and roll music, Impossible.
Well, I've been guilty a long time ago when I was very young in the career, and I thought that people liked the same music as I did, but I knew better after that.
Right, but the sound can either enhance or ruin an experience for sure.
Yes,
same is true for scent. I mean, all of our senses are incredibly important to stimulate, right? Like you go into a beautiful space and it smells terrible. That's why. Scent is being so much used now, especially in the hotel space, right? You can smell one hotels. You step into one hotels, no matter where you go in the world, it smells the same, right? The same with the Edition hotels, for example. They have their very unique smells, Four Seasons. And
Langham has one particular signature flower scent that you can feel it when you walk into their lobby. So because that memory of a scent actually stays your brain, I think, reacts in a different way. If you get the scent somewhere else and you say, oh, I remember this one where I was.
Right. Same for sound and definitely these cues. And of course you want to give somebody a positive experience, because otherwise that scent is forever associated with that negative experience, right? So the imprinting of it is incredibly important too.
Yeah. This has been a very interesting discussion, and we covered many areas, and I really appreciate all your insight in this discussion. Just kind of a final question: when you started your journey in creating these events with the Hidden Worlds Entertainment, and if you would look back to your younger self, is there some tip you would have given yourself early on that you would have maybe avoided some of the obstacles that happen, or you're just happy with the way things have worked? Or are there any tips you would have given your younger self?
I don't know how old people are in general, your audience is that's listening to it, but I would say, or I would encourage anyone who is younger to be curious and broadly interested. We now have these amazing podcasts that you can just consume all day long. You don't have to read these things in books anymore. It's a lot more efficient today to just listen to a podcast doing the gym, like this podcast here. There's podcasts on marketing and finance and what have you. It's always good to be broadly curious and interested, because that allows you to see the world through other people's eyes, and that's incredibly important. And needed to put the world together. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? We need to have different perspectives in order to be more unified overall. So I think that would be the two main recommendations I would give. I've been narrow-minded in my life, and I wish I wasn't. I wish I would have been, more open and more broadly interested more early on in my life. Always ask questions. Always listen to the answer, even if you don't like it. You'll probably take something out of it. So curiosity is key. At least that would be my recommendation.
Well, there's a lot of learnings there. Well, thank you, Daniel. Now, if people are interested to learn more about and want to reach out to you and learn more about what your activities, how can they do so? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can check us out on ourhiddenworlds.com. That's our website. Be completely candid, it needs updating because now we are going into the mental health space. So we do have a little work to do there. Otherwise, feel free to reach me directly on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat. It's Daniel Hettwer, Hettwer.
Well, Daniel, thank you very much. It has been a very interesting discussion, and I really look forward to hearing the comments from the listeners and the viewers. So for all the viewers and listeners, if this is the first time that you're listening to my podcast, please write in the comments, because I think it's a value to not only to Daniel, who is my guest today, but to myself, where we can answer some more questions for you. And obviously very happy if you subscribe or put a review in Apple Play or in YouTube. So look forward to seeing you all again in my next episode. So thank you again, Daniel, for this very nice episode.
Sam-Erik, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.